Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to my basics in chess. Today we'll do some middle game strategy again and again with this targeting opponent's weaknesses. So let's remind us what can be all a weakness. It's important for me to remember that. So we see with the lack of the development, the king in the center, the lack of space, the endangered king after castling, and with the first four we already did in my series. So today I wanted to do this weak squares and weak pawns. So the weak squares and the weak pawns are the most important one because the most important weaknesses in your opponent's position, because they happen all the time, and every time you play a game you'll find a weak square or weak pawn in your opponent's position. Of course, there are you can play this games where they end with four moves with mate, but I'm generally talking about, well, let me express it this way, the real chess games. So the real chess game is basically a battle for the center, and you see this is not something you should forget when you're playing in the middle game. And we have now here this position that I already set up. It is from the Taraj defense with the two knight variations, and it was played in 2012 between Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Varuzhan Eduardovich Akobian, and Mamedyarov with the white pieces. And you see now this position may to you be maybe sort of complex position. So black is here on the move, and he has now two possibilities here in the center. So either he takes now on here with the pawn on d4, then we take of course with the knight, and this pawn would always be a team on d4. This pawn would always be sort of a weak pawn, and it would be an object of white's attack. But in the game, Akobian plays c5, and this is now a position where a mobile center switches to a static center. So in a previous position, we have sort of a mobile center here, with sort of a dynamic one, where when anything can happen here in the center, and it turned into a static center. Now after this c4 move, the position dramatically changes, because now you see we have now here sort of a static center. We're watching only these two pawns on d4 and d5, and when the position gets static here in the center, we watch from our perspective where are the squares to occupy and to somehow infiltrate in the position of black. So you see, the board of course is divided on two sides. We have our side and the opponent's side, and you see you have to watch weaknesses on your opponent's side. Where are the weaknesses on his side? So we're watching this 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th rank, and we watch where to occupy. Of course, now the position is in the middle game. In an end game, we could occupy maybe the 7th rank or even the 8th rank, but in the middle game, we basically try to occupy the 5th and 6th rank. So we are watching us squares or pawns to attack on the opponent's side of the board on the 5th and the 6th rank now, because it's the middle game. And of course, let's see maybe this a5 square. It's not a weak square, because it's well protected by the queen and the knight, so it's not a problem here to defend it. So black has a good coordination of this square. The b5 is also it is sort of weak. You can jump with the knight on b5, but after a6 and maybe b5 to follow, you will really help black to expand on the queen side. So let's see now this c4 square. It's now of course it can be occupied maybe through a knight on a4 and a knight on knight on c5, but again it can be kicked away with this move b6. So let's see the d4 pawn. We said a pawn or square can be a weakness. So you see, well, I think the pawn is very well protected, but it can be an object if we maybe get rid of this knight, so it could sort of pinning the queen to the defense simply of this pawn. But of course black hasn't played with his bishop, so he can play bishop to e6 and defend the pawn very well. And now we come to the square, which is the only weakness. So you see in this examples, you should in a middle game you should watch this game in that style. And now we come to the square that is really weak, and this is the e5 square. You see, of course, now the f5, the g5 we have already played onto it, and here now the h5, of course, cannot be occupied by a piece. So you see, of course, on the 6th rank, black has no weaknesses on the 6th rank. So the only weak square or weak pawn that black has here in his camp is the square of e5. So now we calculate, can we play knight on e5? If now the knight takes on e5, we have now d takes e5. Now maybe knight from knight to g4 will come, or knight to d7. Then we have this taking bishop, and here we take with the queen, and in this position I think we could even take here this knight, and here's again a weak pawn. So here is not a good, I don't think that's a good continuation by black here, because you simply lose this d5 pawn, which is protecting the c4. In this variation, well, white will obviously have a better endgame. So in this position, Akobian plays bishop to e6, and if you see, we have now with the static center here that we already talked about, we trying to get the squares that are occupied by this pawn. So now the knight on e5 is a perfect move, and here we have after that taking now on c6. Now the position turns even. Now we don't have any more weak squares in black's position, but we have now weak pawns. You see, now the c6 is a target for white. He can play queen to a4, which could then maybe attack here the c6. So the c6 now, you see, we've turned from a weak square now into a position where we created a weak pawn. Of course, it's not so easy for black to play c5, because d takes c5, and then after getting rid of this knight, we would then have this d5 weakness. So it's not so easy for him. Now we have b3, and this is this is good play by Mamedyarov, and I've played a game myself in my on a tournament a couple months ago, and the position turned exactly into this one, and I already and I also played b3, and you see the power of this b3 move, because after queen to a5, you see the threat is of course b takes c4, and now after d takes c4, we would then have two weak pawns here. The c4 and the c6 pawn would simply be a weakness. But now Akobian plays knight queen to a5, and now you have this very good move, queen to d2. Now of course if the knight comes out, you will simply take, and now the queen would have to take, and of course you can now take with the bishop, and you see after this one we have now again three weak pawns which we created simply by some trades of pieces. So this is of course not good, this knight on e4, and now Akobian plays bishop to b4, which might be which might be an attack, but here accurate play by Mamedyarov. He plays bishop to f6. Now if the bishop takes, we have now mate, because you see we have this one. Of course this is the threat. Of course if g6, then we have queen to h6, and here would be simple mate. So now after bishop to b4 and bishop took on f6, g takes on f6, you see now we created even more weaknesses. Now we have this f6 and so far the c6. You see we have also now a nice square for our queen here, this h6. You see how the position changed. We have now here on the 6th rank a weakness, this h6, and these 3 pawns. So you see we can play simply onto that, but of course we have to solve this problem with this knight, maybe through rook to c1, or maybe this other rook also to c1. We have to of course watch out for a knight. But in a potential endgame, you see this f6 could be a weakness, so it's not so easy here for black to simply go into the endgame, and this is where Mamedyarov forces the endgame here with the rook to c1, and now we have rook to d8, and now b takes c4, and d takes c4. Now you see, well, we have now sort of here this d4 pawn weak, but you see the c6 and the c4 are the clear objects of our attack. So now Mamedyarov tries to fix the position with e3, and we have now c5. We have now d5, and after taking, we have now bishop takes on d5. Bishop takes on d5, and of course now rook to d5, and if we take, then the opponent can take here this rook on c3. Mamedyarov played simply rook to c2, and here I want to stop, so I'm not gonna show you all of the game, because you see, but I just wanted to point you out what pawn structure we have here now by black. You see, although he is a pawn up, but every pawn in his camp is simply a weakness. Any pawn can be a target of white's attack, and of course in the next move we can already take this c4 with maybe rook to c1. So in the couple next move we get the equal material, and of course we will then go after maybe the c5, maybe now then after this a7 pawn. So you see, white managed to create many weaknesses in black's position, and well, although the game lasted for let me see, 103 moves, Mamedyarov was able to win the game, and the PGN of the game will be in the description below. You can see the whole game, and of course maybe this game will be maybe my endgame strategies more explained, because now we are in sort of an endgame. But I wanted to just realize in this position here, after this move c4, we have now this critical position in the middle game, and what you try when you play. I don't know, when I started to play, I always it was always hard for me to find these ideas. So you see, you try now here, maybe you ask yourself, where to attack, what should I do, can I play maybe e4, rook to e1, maybe support, then comes maybe bishop to g4. So it's unclear here for white how to attack, and you see this is simply here you have to understand it here, because after this move c4 the position drastically changed, and you see you have now this knight on e4 outpost, knight on e5 outpost, which can create for you an advantage. So here after knight on e4, if bishop to d7 comes, then maybe we have even more support with f4. You see, now we have built sort of a stone wall here, and you see now the knight would be then very well cemented in in on this 5th rank. So I hope you realize the opponent's weaknesses and try to find them in every game you play, because you see win a game simply by simply by finding one particular weakness in your opponent's position. And but you see there are plenty of weaknesses which you can play onto. Of course you have to choose the correct one. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. You can subscribe to my channel, the links is above here, and you can also watch my King's Indian series and my David versus Goliath series, which are also here shown. So in my King's Indian videos I'm explaining from A to Z this whole opening repertoire for the King's Indian, so you can maybe with this middle game strategies and with a good opening well, get a better understanding of chess. And of course with this David of Goliath videos I'm trying here to just motivate you, and that you can win against stronger players if you're brave enough. So guys, thank you for watching, and chess is the best, of course.